You step outside tonight, and the streetlights do all the thinking for you. You don't even notice the dark anymore. It just bends around you, pushed back by glass and electricity. But your ancestors didn't have that luxury, and for them, the night wasn't something to avoid, it was something to use. Picture a small band of early humans moving across open grassland. The sun has just dropped below the horizon, the heat of the day is finally breaking, and instead of making camp, they start walking. This feels backwards to you, dangerous even. Predators hunt at night, visibility drops to almost nothing. Every instinct screams that daylight is safer. But for tens of thousands of years, that instinct was wrong more often than it was right. Daytime in much of early human territory was brutal. Open savannas baked under direct sun, temperatures could climb high enough to kill a person walking long distances without rest or shade. Water evaporated faster. Energy drained faster. A body moving under that sun burned through its reserves in a fraction of the time it would at night. So they waited. They moved in the cooler hours, when the world wasn't trying to cook them alive. There's something else, too. Something less practical and more primal. The night carried information the day couldn't. Sound travels differently after dark. The air settles, calms, stops shimmering and warping the way it does over hot ground. A snapped branch 100 meters away becomes audible. The shuffle of a herd moving through dry grass becomes audible. Early humans who learned to listen instead of just look gained an advantage no eyesight could match. And eyesight itself adapted. Give your eyes 20-30 minutes away from any light source and they change, pupils widen. The rod cells in your retina, the ones built for low light instead of color, take over. The world doesn't disappear in the dark. It just changes shape. Shadows become shapes you can read. Movement becomes the thing you notice first, not detail. Your ancestors lived inside that shift constantly. They weren't blind at night. They were differently sighted. Think about the predators, too. Lions, hyenas, leopards, yes, they hunted at night, but so did early humans. The difference wasn't who could see in the dark. It was who could think in it. A lion hunts on instinct, on muscle, on the raw physical advantage of teeth and speed. A human band hunting or traveling at night had something else, coordination. Signals passed in low whistles. Hand positions read by feel more than sight. A leader who knew the terrain because he had walked it 100 times before, who could navigate by memory when the eyes gave out. This is the part that gets lost when you imagine cavemen huddled by a fire, terrified of the dark beyond the flames. That image isn't wrong, exactly. Fear of the unknown edge of the light was real. But fear didn't mean paralysis. It meant respect. And respect, paired with knowledge, turned into capability. Consider migration. Early human groups crossing vast stretches of land, savanna, desert, coastline, often moved at night specifically because the alternative was death by heat exhaustion. Crossing a waterless stretch of desert under a midday sun could kill in hours. The same distance covered after sunset, when temperatures dropped and the body needed less water to function, was survivable. Sometimes barely, but survivable. There's a rhythm to this that your body still half remembers. Even now, you've felt it. The strange clarity that comes over you on a late-night walk, when the streets are empty and your senses sharpen without you asking them to. That's not your imagination. That's an old circuit, still wired in, still occasionally switching on. Now think about the stars, not as poetry, as tools. Before maps, before compasses, before anything you'd recognize as navigation technology, there was the sky. A fixed, predictable, endlessly repeating pattern that didn't move the way clouds did, that didn't shift the way landscapes did after a flood or a fire. The stars were the most reliable map early humans ever had, and they were only visible after dark. A group walking toward a known water source, a known hunting ground, a known meeting point with another band, could orient themselves by a handful of bright, consistent points in the sky. Daytime gave them the sun, one single moving marker. Night gave them dozens of fixed ones. For long-distance travel, night was simply more informative. This reframes something important. You tend to think of darkness as an absence of light, an absence of safety, an absence of information. But to the people who depended on it, night was full. Full of sound, full of cooler air, full of stars that didn't lie to you the way heat shimmer over open ground could. There's a kind of trust required to move through the world that way. Trust in your own senses, trust in the people walking beside you, trust in patterns you'd learned over years of watching the same sky, the same terrain, the same animal behaviors repeat themselves season after season. You don't build that kind of trust by hiding from the dark. You build it by walking into it, again and again, until it stops feeling like an enemy and starts feeling like just another condition to work with. Somewhere in your own night routine, a thinner, quieter version of that old skill still survives. You walk to your car in an unlit lot and your steps slow, your ears sharpen, your eyes adjust without you telling them to. You notice the way your hearing seems to expand the moment your vision narrows. For a few seconds, without trying, you become a slightly more attentive version of yourself. That's not anxiety. Or not only anxiety. That's an old, patient system waking up because it recognizes the conditions it was built for. Early humans didn't conquer the dark. They didn't defeat it or eliminate it the way a streetlight does. They learned its shape. They learned which hours were cooler, which sounds meant danger, which patterns in the sky pointed home. The dark wasn't an obstacle standing between them and survival. For long stretches of human history, it was the path itself. So tonight, when the sun goes down and the porch light flicks on without a second thought, something in you still remembers a version of this. A version where the dark wasn't the enemy. It was just the part of the day you hadn't learned to use yet.